I tell you what, 6 months in, Steve, and here we are turning back on the campaign promises, and we bombed Iran on behalf of Israel. Yes, it was on behalf of Israel. We're entering a nuclear war, the World War III, because the entire world is going to erupt. And you want to know the people that are cheering it on right now? Their tune is going to drastically change the minute we start seeing flag-draped coffins on the nightly news, on Fox News that brainwashes all the baby boomers, and on CNN that brainwashes all the Democrat baby boomers. And that is exactly how this is going to go down. And
as a conservative and as a business owner in the construction industry and as a realist, I can say we have to do something about labor, and that needs to be a smarter plan than just rounding up every single person and deporting them just like that. Right. So, and I'm going to get pushback on that, but it's, I'm just living in reality from here on out.
Yeah.
And if anybody's mad at me for saying the truth, then I'm sorry.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, ladies and gentlemen, our next president. Sorry, JD Vance. Well, I mean, there's people are saying it. I go to dinner parties.
Yeah, I heard you.
Well, by the way,
I heard you on Joe Rogan. I will praise Nancy Pelosi. She had an incredible career for her party. I served under her speakership in my first term of Congress, and I'm very impressed at her ability to get things done. I wish we could get things done for our party like Nancy Pelosi was able to deliver for her party. So I wish her well in her retirement. But I would like to see people exit Washington a lot sooner rather than wait until their 80s.
Yeah, we are.
Not so hard to do. President Trump has declared he is officially pulling his endorsement of MAGA firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Georgia Congresswoman has been demanding the release of the Epstein files and has criticized the president for spending too much time abroad. The president, well, has apparently heard enough, posting on Truth Social overnight that all wacky Marjorie Taylor Greene does is complain, complain, complain.
I think that her constituents aren't going to be happy. Already, I have people calling me. They want to challenge her to a race in her district in Georgia. And, you know, that's too bad. She's lost a wonderful conservative reputation. But when she says, don't go overseas, if I didn't go over...
Wait. So we got to talk about the fallout between President Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And boy, I got to tell you guys, this one was coming, right? It was very easy to see this coming, as Marjorie Taylor Greene has been basically saying a lot of things and doing a lot of things that have obviously pissed off the president.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a big ally of yours, said that she would rather see you focused on nonstop domestic policy meetings here at the White House instead of nonstop foreign policy meetings. What's your response to her saying that, and also saying that grocery prices are up and not down, as you've said?
Yeah, so I don't know what happened to Marjorie. She's a nice woman, but I don't know what happened. She's lost her way, I think. But I have to view the presidency as a worldwide situation, not locally. I mean, we could have a world that's on fire where wars come to our shores very easily if you had a bad president. But with all of that, I passed a great, big, beautiful bill, which is the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country. So when somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's now catering to the other side, I don't know what, I guess she's, got some kind of an act going, but I'm surprised at her. But when somebody like Marjorie goes over and starts making statements like that, it shows she doesn't know. But so when somebody makes a statement about he's devoting time to the world, well, the world is the United States, because if the world's in trouble or if the world is ripping us off, the world was ripping us off before I came here. Europe was getting massive tariffs. They were sending us 9-10 million cars a year. We were sending them none. They were not taking our agriculture. We were taking massive amounts of their. It was so unfair. Now we have a deal where $950 billion is coming into the United States because of me and because of tariffs.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, here's the thing. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. I do not dislike Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay? I am not one of these people that believes that you can't criticize the president. However, I think that there are legitimate criticisms of the president from the right, okay? And there are criticisms that are not so legitimate. And we're going to go over some of Marjorie Taylor Greene's criticisms and why she lost an endorsement from the president and what that could possibly mean. But first, let's just go over kind of what happened here, okay? Because President Trump went on Truth Social and basically said that he is withdrawing his support from Marjorie Taylor Greene And now Marjorie Taylor Greene is having a full-blown meltdown over the fact that President Trump is not supporting her anymore. In fact, he may support a primary challenge of her. Okay. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the situation that she got herself in. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Live now from Fox, I'm Shauna Kalafi. We have some more breaking news tonight. Earlier, we told you President Trump announced he is withdrawing his support for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She has just responded. We want to read you again what President Trump said on Truth Social. He said, I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men in women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, the biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, as opposed to being the laughingstock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, record-setting, invested in the USA, and having created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. He says, all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. He went on to say, it seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12% and didn't have a chance unless, of course, people that is upset that unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. He said she has told many people that she's upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore. But with 219 congressmen and women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, and almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, I can't take ranting lunatics calls every day, he says. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they are too are fed up with her and her antics. And if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View with their low IQ Republican-hating anchors. Trump says, thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. And we just got a response from Marjorie Taylor Greene in the last few minutes. She posted this. She said, President Trump just attacked me and lied about me. I haven't called him at all, but I did send these text messages today. We will show you those in a moment. She said, apparently this is what sent him over the edge, the Epstein files. And of course, he's coming after me hard to make an example, to scare all the other Republicans before next week's vote to release the Epstein files. She says it's astonishing, really, how hard he's fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out, and that he actually goes to this level, she says. She went on to say, but really, most Americans wish he would fight this hard to help the forgotten men and women of America who are fed up with foreign wars and foreign causes, are going broke trying to feed their families, and are losing hope of ever achieving the American dream. That's what I voted for. I have supported President Trump with too much of my precious time, too much of my own money, and fought harder for him, even when almost all other Republicans turned their back and denounced him. And she also said, but I don't worship or serve President Trump. I worship God. Jesus is my savior, and I serve my district, GA 14, and the American people. I remain the same today as I've always been, and I will continue to pray that this administration will be successful, because the American people desperately deserve what they voted for. She said, for me, I remain America first and America only. And these are those text messages that she referenced in that tweet. You see those on your screen. One of those going to somebody named Natalie in her phone. It says, in every single interview I have done, I have defended President Trump. I said over and over, the women say he did nothing wrong, and their attorney says he's the only one who helped. And the Democrats had 4 years to release the files, but did nothing. Stop ignoring the women. Many of them literally voted for President Trump and say so publicly. Them being raped as teenagers is not a hoax. She also attached this tweet addressed to someone labeled as DJT in her phone. It says that check the flight logs of Epstein's plane. Bill Clinton is on there like 26 times, Hillary too. For many of us, releasing the Epstein files has always been for the women who were victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but also because we believed that the Democrat bad guys like the Clintons were entangled and involved with him. Epstein was the spider that wove the web of the deep state. Lean into it. Again, Marjorie Taylor Greene is claiming that this was a text message that she sent to President Trump. She says she believes this is what sent him over the edge today, as he just announced he is withdrawing his support and endorsement for her.
Yeah. So you see, now you heard that. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right, today, is basically claiming that she's getting death threats, okay? She's having a full-blown meltdown over losing the president's support.
The latest post that's gone out from the representative's page, really in just the last 2 hours or so. She says, quote, I am now being contacted by private security firms with warnings for my safety as a hotbed of threats were made against me and are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful man in the world. The man I supported and helped to get elected, aggressive rhetoric attacking me has historically led to death threats and multiple convictions of men who were radicalized by the same type of rhetoric being directed at me right now. This time by the President of the United States. As a woman, I take threats from men seriously. Now I have a small understanding of the fear and pressure the women who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his cabal must feel. As a Republican who overwhelmingly votes for President Trump's bills and agendas, his aggression against me, which also fuels the venomous nature of his radical internet trolls, so many of whom are paid. This is nothing shocking to everyone. My phone is blowing up with constant amazing support. I'm so thankful to the political industrial complex. He does go on to talk about the toxic nature of some of this happening behind the scenes. It's a very, very long tweet as well, but she ends it off by saying that the political industrial complex and the toxic, violent nature of American politics must end. Our country is worth saving, and it can only be done if we pull together and save ourselves. That's, again, this is the latest tweet that we have from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, so you get the gist of it, right? You understand what's going on. Now, again, I don't dislike Marjorie Taylor Greene at all, okay? I just feel like it's weird when she comes out and pretends like she doesn't know or that she's shocked that the president pulled his endorsement of her, right? Because, again, over the last 6-7 months, she has been saying some stuff that's just kind of like, I don't know, Marjorie. You are criticizing the president in a way that I don't think is necessarily fair, especially as somebody on the right. Now, again, I want to be clear. I don't think that it is out of bounds to criticize the president, right? I believe that you can't criticize the president. And when people do criticize the president, I think that that's fair. But there are unfair ways to criticize the president. And I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene has unfairly criticized the president in ways that I think just aren't very smart or intelligent. Like, for example, the criticism that the president spends too much time overseas, which is something that I've seen online a lot. That is a very low IQ criticism of the president because it kind of shows that you don't understand how foreign policy affects domestic outcomes. Like, for example, President Trump spending time in Saudi Arabia or spending time with the Emirates is part of the reason why he has influence over OPEC. OPEC has influence over the global price of oil, and that influences the price of gasoline in America, right? What we pay at the pump is influenced by our relationships in the Middle East. We know this because Biden said, screw Saudi Arabia. He didn't spend time overseas, right? And when he went overseas, he got embarrassed. They didn't like Biden. So, yeah, they kind of screwed Biden when it came to manipulating the supply of oil globally. And that is part of the reason why we had such high gas prices under Joe Biden is because his foreign policy was bad. I think that Biden's foreign policy is part of the reason why we had the war in Ukraine and Russia, right? We have that war still going on, which President Trump is trying to make come to an end. He hasn't been successful at it so far, but he's put in a legitimate effort to do so. Israel and Gaza, I think that part of the reason why that war went on for so long is because Biden was not willing to twist some arms in order to force peace. But we've seen the president do that, right? We've seen him accomplish things from a foreign policy perspective that the Biden administration was not able to accomplish, which includes more peace, right? Less wars. But she's running around pretending as if, you know, he started a new war left and right, and that's not necessarily the case, okay? Yeah, he bombed Iran. But at the time, I said, listen, let's wait. Let's see what happens. Let's not jump to conclusions that we're going to have American troops on the ground fighting in Iran on behalf of Israel. I said, let's wait and see at the time. A lot of people like her, they jumped online and pretended like it was World War III, that the president was making a terrible decision. Everything was falling apart, that, we're about to be on the battlefield in Iran. Like that's not what happened. So stuff like that she's doing, that I just don't think is fair, right? I don't think her criticisms are necessarily grounded in reality. You have another one here. Stand in front of a bunch of psychotic boomer leftists carrying signs calling Trump a sex trafficking pedophile. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene is participating in the Epstein hoax in the sense that she knows and everybody knows that the Democrats are only talking about Jeffrey Epstein because they're using Jeffrey Epstein to smear the president. They're not talking about Jeffrey Epstein because they actually care about the victims. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene claims that she cares about the victims, and she has associated herself with the victims, but she also claimed, along with the victims, that they were going to be releasing their own list, right? They were going to be naming names, okay? And she claims she's heard so many things and all this stuff. Okay, great. So release your own list, right? Have the victims come out and to tell us what happened to them or who did what. Again, I'm pro-releasing the list. I am pro-releasing the Epstein files, but there's a responsible way to do it and there's an irresponsible way to do it. What we saw over this past week with that email dump was an irresponsible way of doing it. Jeffrey Epstein was saying all types of crazy stuff, like, for example, that he had dinner with the president, Thanksgiving dinner with the president while Trump was in office. That is demonstrably false, right? Like, we know for a fact that's not true, but that's what Epstein said in the email. So it's stuff like that was like, well, if the government just releases the files with a bunch of redacted information out of context, people can just come to their own conclusions about the meanings and the context of these conversations, and they could use that to falsely smear people and to accuse them of doing things that they didn't do. And we saw Democrats do this with these emails because they redacted the name of Virginia Giuffre, one of the victims who exonerated President Trump, said that she never saw him do anything wrong at all, along with other victims who also said that they never saw President Trump do anything wrong. But Democrats weaponized people's ignorance in order to make it seem like President Trump was spending time with an Epstein victim and that he was engaged in inappropriate activities, when that was not the case at all. They completely changed the context of these emails. So I can only imagine if Democrats did that with those emails, just imagine if the government released everything that they had, what they would do with that and how they would spin the conversations of the information out of context in a way to falsely smear people. So again, there's a responsible way to release the files, which I am pro, and there's an irresponsible way of releasing the files. And I think that that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene has to understand while she's begging the government to release these files. But yet she claims, and the victims claim, that they know, right? They got a list of people. If they got a list of people and they want to start pointing fingers and naming names, they can do that. Nothing's stopping them from doing that. She went on CNN, and according to this, the Young Turks, I'm not sure she actually went on the Young Turks, to blame the Schumer shutdown on Republicans. Yeah, she was doing that too. Basically taking the side of Democrats during the shutdown. She was being used by CNN and the mainstream liberal media to attack Trump. See, even Marjorie Taylor Greene says that it was Republicans' fault, even though the shutdown is 100% on Democrats. But what Marjorie Taylor Greene was doing at the time, did not help. It didn't help at all. And then you got the Obamacare stuff where she's running around basically criticizing Republicans as Democrats are basically trying to use these Obamacare subsidies against Republicans. Again, the timing of all this also is important, claiming that, well, Republicans don't have a health care plan, right? Again, she almost made it sound like she supported the subsidies for Obamacare, right? Again, when you have the mainstream, when you got CNN and MSNBC, when they are saying, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, look at what she's saying about Trump. When MSNBC is pushing your narrative against Trump, then you know you're screwing up, right? There's something wrong, okay, about what you're saying or how you're saying it. Came out in favor of cheap labor because she benefits from her construction company. Yeah, so she does have a construction company, and she basically said, hey, we need to pump the brakes on the mass deportations, that we're deporting too many people. Basically what she's saying is that we are doing too much when it comes to mass deportation. I think that the last thing that conservatives want to hear is a business owner claiming that they don't like the mass deportations because they're losing their cheap labor, right? Their labor that they're paying under the table to do jobs that Americans can do, right? I'm not sure how conservative that is. I'm not sure if the conservative base is on board with that at this point in time. I'm just saying. Push the false narrative about the Argentinian bailout. Basically, saying the same thing that the leftists are saying. First and foremost, calling it a bailout, not accurate to describe it as a bailout. You're talking about a currency swap, which is different than a bailout. She did praise Nancy Pelosi. She did go on a View, and instead of pushing back against the leftists, she was essentially kiki and ha-ha, right? Playing nice with them. And then as soon as she left, the cackling hens started talking junk about her again. So, you know, it's stuff like this where I'm just like, she shouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, she should not be surprised that it's come to this. This is essentially what she was asking for with some of the stuff that she's been saying. And again, I don't dislike Marjorie Taylor Greene at all. I mean, for the most part, she votes for President Trump's agenda. So I don't have a problem with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't have a problem with Thomas Massie either, right? I don't have a problem. At the end of the day, people are going to infight. Politicians are going to infight. This is just what happens in politics. I just feel like it's weird to me that Marjorie Taylor Greene is playing victim and pretending like she's surprised that this happened, right? And that President Trump is just attacking her for no reason when it's like, no. You've been basically asking for President Trump to do this because of some of the stuff that you've been saying over the past few months that I think are unfair criticisms of the president. Again, I think that it is appropriate to criticize the president, but her criticisms, in my opinion, aren't necessarily fair. And I think that her criticisms did more to help Democrats than it did to help Republicans, okay? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.